All right, all right.
Is it on? Is it on?
All right. How's it going,
Yep.
everybody?
Aloha.
How's it?
How's everybody doing? Let me see
All
if
right.
it's on. Yes, it is. Hello, everybody. I am here with Philip Ong and Dane DuPont, and we are talking about the shake and rattling down in Pahala Ka'u and also near Loihi. I know there's a huge buzz in our community right now about Loihi and the amount of earthquakes that is happening out in Loihi. But we have one of the best experts that helped me through the 2018 eruption, Mr. Philip Ong, and also the part of Tracker, Hawaii Tracker, Mr. Dane DuPont. And it's bringing back some memories of all these eruptions, and there's something to do with May. And May has been may I it has been posing that May has been doing some eruption to us. But first things first. Phil, what's your take on what's happening? And I know there's a lot of earthquakes that is happening in the southeastern flank of Halimau, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, there's a lot of earthquakes. I thought we could start off with going to the earthquakes page here on the USGS website. And I click on earthquakes there and load up their site's pretty good for showing what we want to show today, which is there's been a whole bunch of earthquakes. Biggest one's bigger magnitude 3.5, but a little less magnitude 4, happening since about early in the morning this morning, off
Mm-hmm.
over Lihi Seamount. See if we can
Huh.
get it to load here. It's been busy today, so it's been taking a little while.
Right.
Right. So the amount of earthquakes that we've seen this morning. How about them? Talk to me about the amount of earthquakes that we've seen on the southeast, on the southwest flank, on the south flank of Halimau. We've been seeing a lot of earthquakes in Pahala area, Ka'u area.
Right. So
What's your
the
take on that?
those Pahala quakes have been truly interesting thing to discuss for the past about year or so since they
Mm-hmm.
had an uptick in frequency. And those are really deep quakes. Those are the main thing to know about it. And there's some low frequency tremors in there mixed in, but it's really deep. The Pahala quakes. What we're seeing now at Loihi. So when I say deep at Pahala, what am I saying? Well, 30 to 40 kilometers down. You know, very deep quakes. Today, the quakes we're seeing, if the earthquake map would load, maybe bring up the other one, Philip, the
There we
USGS
go.
one. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go.
I've
Um,
I've noticed some of the earthquakes are like 23 miles deep, and some that are like as shallow as 3 miles deep.
right. So most of these are about the ones we're seeing today are between about like uh, 10 kilometers, 11 kilometers to about like five. Most of
Mm-hmm.
them are falling in that range,
Right.
but there's a good mix of them. Here we can see the Pahala ones, quakes that Philip's now bringing up, and we can see the two clusters. The top cluster is the Pahala quakes, the deep Pahala quakes, and then the Lohihi are the southernmost quakes. You want to now take it over, Phil?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, guys. Yeah, the maps wasn't loading over here, so let's see if it actually has loaded yet. Nope, it's still that one's still hanging, right? But yeah, there is those group of earthquakes offshore right here, right around Loihi. It's kind of hard to see any structure there because it's underwater, right? If you zoom out enough, it actually will show the bathymetry, right? And then the other trick on this earthquake map is if you go on here and you click on Show U.S. Faults, then when you zoom in, also you can see the outline of the summit caldera and then the rift zones of Loihi right there. So you can kind of see that these earthquakes are kind of near the summit of Lihi, just off to the side of it. And one useful thing you can do here on the side is you can actually list them by, let's say, the largest magnitude first. So now we can see here the biggest one was a 3.9, then a 3.8, then a 3.8, 3.7, 3.7, 3.6, 3.5, 3.4. So they're definitely decent size. Have you guys heard of anyone reporting these being felt, whether Ocean View or Pahala or anything? Any word, Ikaika?
I haven't heard any or haven't heard of anybody feeling these earthquakes. But last week, Thursday evening, I was in Kona, and I felt that earthquake outside of Kona,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
at 11 something at night. But these earthquakes here haven't felt any in the Pahala area. Heard of it, not heard of any in Pahala area. Anybody felt that? But you know what I wanted to ask you, Phil. During the 2018 eruption, the 2018 eruption was so massive, so much earthquakes, so much lava. But there was also times before 2018 that it also happened on the same rift. What I'm trying to say is the past. What was um, the past of Loihi? When was the last time that it had earthquakes like this, or did it ever have um, earthquakes earthquake swarms such as this at Lohi in the last 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, there's been a lot of them, yeah. Probably in the last 20 years, if we go back to 1996, was the last reported eruption on Lihi, right? So Lihi, because it is so far offshore and it is still, 3,000 feet underwater on the top of it, it's going to be hard for anyone to feel the earthquakes unless they get pretty big, yeah. But,
Right.
1996, there was quite a few big earthquakes. I mean, the biggest one was a 4.9, but there were quite a few of those. We can look at the patterns of that. And so let me show you guys, some of the historical context. This is a kind of flashed it earlier. This is a view of Lihi, so you guys can kind of imagine what it looks like, from the east, from the west, from the north. It's all underwater. This is kind of all from the sonar image data compiled by Ken Rubin at University of Hawaii Manoa. But so let's go back in time and let's step back to this is 2017. 2017, in June there was a flurry of earthquakes as well. And so in this case, there was a biggest, it was a 3.3, then 3.0, 2.9. That one, 75 earthquakes, in the course of about 2 weeks or so, right? So we're probably past that by this point since our earthquakes are bigger. We have more of the magnitude threes than that. But let's go back in time a little more. 2005, we had a 4.5 was the biggest one in that cluster, and a few above three, 3.5 down to 3.0. Quite a few of those as well. And you can see 33 earthquakes in that cluster. So maybe we're past that as a little bit as well. Next one back is 2001. 2001, there was a flurry that had a 4.9 and a 4.7, 4.4, and then a whole bunch of threes as well. And you can kind of see what that one looks like, right? And so all these were non-eruptions. They were just movement of magma and adjustments of the volcano, just like Kilauea and Mauna Loa also do, right? So let's go back
Right.
one more frame in time and go back to 1996 here and show you
Wow.
guys. This is 1996, and I was kind of scrolling through here, but let me put it back to the top. Uh, so yeah, a whole bunch of earthquakes,
Hmm.
1,020 earthquakes in here, and let me put them back into the order of largest magnitude first.
And what was the time span of that earthquakes?
So in 1996, the eruption lasted about something like 3.5 weeks, something like that. And for the first probably week or so, the earthquakes were fairly small, But then after about a week or so, the last 2.5 weeks, they started having these big ones, these 4.9s, 4.8s, 4.7s. So here, I'm going to show you guys first a list of the biggest ones, right? There's 3.49s, 4.8, 4.7, and you can see the list goes down a whole bunch. 4.4s, 4.3, 4.2, 4.1, 4.4. So we haven't quite got to that range of activity and what's happening now, although, it could ramp up to that potentially. We have to wait and see that develop still. It hasn't quite happened yet. But to answer your question, let me put it back now to the order of oldest first, right? You can see that scrolling on the left now, the first ones are 2.4, 2.7, 1.9, 2.0, 2.8, and it took all the way until down in here. You see the first
To
4.0
four.
earthquake. Yeah, there was a 4.2,
Right.
right? There was a 4.7. And what we know from submarine excursions to Lihi after the fact in 1996 is there was a new pit crater formed on top of the volcano, right? All underwater. So there was some at least partial collapse. You can call it a summit collapse. We don't know how big it was relative to the whole caldera, but there was some collapse of the summit. And there might have been, like we saw at Kilauea in 2018, that seemed kind of once every so often a big step down earthquake, and ours were 5.2s. These ones might have been 4.9s, 4.7s, right? At least how we can measure them from land. And actually, there was so little effect on land from this that there was no reports of any tsunami, no influence like that. It's just too deep. But the scientists couldn't even tell if there was one or two different eruptions that happened after the fact by submarine. They saw a fresh lava flow. They can grab a sample of the flow and then look at the gases that are kind of still there at the time. They did this a few months after the eruption was over, so that was pretty soon afterwards. See which gases are still left in there, and then try to figure out, well, these gases, there's so much left, therefore the eruption had to be so long ago. And they have two candidates, so there's one, possibly two different eruptions. So it could have been just all at the summit. It could have been all at the flank. It could have been a flank eruption with a summit collapse. We have no idea about those details. That's kind of the interesting thing about it. There may be some parallels there.
Okay, so now the next question is the depth. So the depth of what we're seeing today and the depth of what we have seen in 1996 of the beginning of the eruption. Can we see some comparisons to that? Because that would be a good intel of
Yeah, so there's not a very easy way to see it with the USGS website. We're not working, but I'll show you. We can kind of scan here, like the beginning of the eruption in 1996. This is July 16th, 1996. You can see the first. We're here in kilometers. Maybe I should switch it over to miles so you guys can compare that a little more easily. Can I do that on here? Maybe not. Okay, we'll just go with kilometers. So we can see we're at 8 kilometers, 7, 16, 8, 26, 9. So let's give it a range of, looks like maybe 7 to, let's call it 26 an outlier, and 18, 20, somewhere in there, right? And if we look at the ones that we have for ours today, let's zoom in again so we only have those ones on our list here. These ones are having depths of, it's similar. I'm still looking at the largest magnitude first. Let's do newest first in our case. So, and we'll scroll back a little bit, and you can see, we're actually in a fairly tight range. 9, 10, 7 kilometers, 6 kilometers. So it's nothing we're having so far today has been that shallow, right? I was kind of, let me pull up for you guys. I can't get the other one to load, but I do have a screenshot from earlier. Let's see if I can get it going for you guys here. Pull it up over here. Make this work. All right. Bypass right there. Okay, so this is a plot that I did earlier, kind of across of a cross section here. Let me see if that one will load. Okay. So this right here is like, you can actually draw a rectangle on a USGS site and kind of capture all these earthquakes and plot the depth over time. And that's what this previous plot right here actually is. So this right here is actually showing, on the right side, all the earthquakes happening today. And so what I'm curious is if we see like the earthquakes getting shallower over time. And so we can see the depth range here is mostly between 7.5 miles down and maybe 4 miles down, somewhere in that range like that, right? And as we were looking more recently, it might have been getting slightly shallower, but that's the real progression. Is this pattern of earthquakes, this kind of between that 4 and 7.5 mile range, going to end up between a surface and 3 miles down, and then it might actually erupt? Does that make sense?
Right. So the earthquakes are still at a deep, below the surface is pretty deep, and it doesn't pose any eruptions immediately or in the next couple days. But by watching the depth of the earthquakes, that could entail an eruption that is going to be happening soon.
Yeah, we would like to see them get shallower and kind of stay this active. So plenty of them keeping on going. If it keeps going like this for a week and it gets shallower, then it may actually erupt. But then the next question is, what if it does erupt? Does that really make that big a difference to us, or is it more of a novelty?
No. The good thing about it is 20 miles out of Punaluu. So, it's 20, 25 miles outside of Punaluu. So, it's pretty far away from from our island to do a kind of some kind of devastation to our island. No, it won't be. That won't be a threat for us. But what would be a threat would be the earthquakes and possibly tsunami.
Right.
Right.
Right. So yeah, 1996, there was no tsunami, and the biggest earthquake was a 4.9. So that's probably partly tied, right? A 4.9, is not that big enough to generate a tsunami from down there, right?
Well, Kathy Andrade just felt one in Pahala, and she just posted something on our comments. So,
Oh yeah, thanks
yeah,
for that report.
Yeah.
mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo.
Question
Yeah.
is it was it one of the deep Pahala quakes or one of Loihi's? You know,
Right.
there
So
you're gonna feel both of them. Potentially, could feel both.
yeah, it's
Hey,
interesting, right?
Rachel.
It's either 30 miles off sideways, or it's 20 miles down, right?
Yeah, right. One of the two. Pick one.
Right.
So, and the other thing that just expanded what Ikaika was saying before about it being 20 miles offshore, yeah, and it's also under 3,000 feet of water.
That's right.
It's going to we talk about how Haleakala, the lake up there, is scrubbing SO2 out of the emissions. Well, 3,000 feet of ocean is going to scrub a lot of that gas out too.
Yeah. So one of the things too, I've been out at Loihi before. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I've been out at Lihi before with my boat. Out there, right on the pinnacle, it's about 200, almost 2,000 fathoms deep,
Wow.
right around. Comes up to 18, 1,700, 1,500 fathoms, and one fathom is a foot, so it's over a mile deep, for sure. We was out there fishing a few times on the seamount, but yeah, it's pretty deep. As of right now, it doesn't pose any threats to our island. The only threat that we're gonna see is earthquakes or tsunamis. So that's the only threat that I know a lot of people are on our island is being alarmed by all these earthquakes in Loihi. But that's what kind of threats we're gonna see in the next future if there is a eruption.
Yeah, the earthquakes will have to get much much bigger than even a 96 eruption for that to be a threat, and that's what yeah. But even still, we have a tsunami warning center in place exactly for that.
Right.
Yeah. So if you like it,
Anything
Keika,
else on the? Yes.
we could turn and talk about Mauna Loa and Kilauea a little bit.
So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
question that would act perfectly to pivot. It's from Nancy Knight. It says, thanks. She thanks us for doing this, and then the question is about Mauna Loa. Historically, what kind of earthquake activity has happened before Mauna Loa erupts? Was it similar to the 6.9 earthquake activity in 2018 in the Lower East Rift Zone?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, it is. I'll let you take it.
Might be too big
I'm generous like that.
to take it all in a huge part. Yeah. So I mean, well, it's very tricky, right? So I mean, it's hard to compare 2018 because we have so much data in 2018 and we have so little data any other time in the past. That's really the tricky part about it, right? So the biggest earthquake in the past that we know of is that 1868 Kau quake, right? There's actually a couple of quakes, one on Mauna Loa's, and then one under the southwest rift of Kilauea, and that kind of sets off a chain of events that we think leads to lower east rift eruption and kind of feedback back and forth. And so we think there's some dynamic that possibly a big eruption like this of Kilauea, in simple terms, may have some influence, although it's hard to really prove that. And may open up the path, let's say it, for Mauna Loa to do something if she's ready. Maybe it's a better way to put it, right? So she's slowly still swelling and inhaling and breathing in and filling with more magma. And I think the closer Pahala earthquakes we're seeing there, that's kind of right in the middle of the screen there, that's still on shore. That's the sign of what seeing the magma moving, whether it's into all three of those volcanoes, right? And just kind of moving through a slightly different geometry that kind of started to change in 2014 and 15, and then kind of got really changed in 2018 as the south flank adjusted, right? So that's why we see those there more now during eruption and ever since. It's just the shape of it changed.
Right.
So, all right. So kind of getting around to it, It's hard to say, if long-term periods of Mauna Loa's eruptions coincide with post-collapse periods of Kilauea, but it seems like that might be something, and so we're kind of keeping an eye on Mauna Loa, especially because of that reason. And really, it's a wait and see.
I'll jump in and try and finish that question up a little bit because I think it was also asking kind of about key earthquakes on Mauna Loa worth watching for. And yes, they do exist. There are certain types of earthquakes that would be indicative of magma moving. Say something, large earthquakes at the summit, shallowing, because we're seeing them right now around 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, maybe up to 2 kilometers below sea level. But it can start increasing that frequency and escalate, and then we start looking for inflation and stuff like that. But much of the monitoring equipment that you would look for after the seismicity signals that we're seeing on Lihi don't exist there, right?
Right.
We get on Mauna Loa where we get the added benefit of we got tilt meters, we got GPS, we got multi-gas meters, like we have all this other monitoring. Right now, Lihi, you're just flying off of the seismic signal.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Here's another illustration from Mauna Loa. Maybe I can throw this up there real quick. So, before big eruptions in Mauna Loa, we do expect earthquakes in, one of these areas, whether it's the Kauiki area or the Hilea area or the Kona area as like kind of lead off. So like usually one big earthquake in a range of 1983, it was a 6.6. So, that's kind of something we need to see a big adjustment in that scale before we're ready to say Mauna Loa is going to ramp up with earthquakes. That's kind of our dead ringer we're waiting for to see, but we haven't seen that. And so, absent that, what we might look for is earthquake counts on Mauna Loa as a kind of a raw guide and looking at the GPS. And we can't switch to that unless you guys got something else to jump in on real quick.
No, go ahead.
All right, okay, so let me switch over to Mauna Loa over here. And Mauna Loa, first of all, just want to share with you guys the latest photographs that have been shared from USGS. And here they actually were installing a multi-gas up at Mauna Loa because just like we've been saying, they've been saying, Mauna Loa may be the next one to go. We don't know that, but if it does, we want to be ready for her. And so the multi-gas is a key part of that, since we know the gas is one of the key early indicators of magma moving shallower in a volcano and leading to an eruption, right? So that was deployed. They also were able to fix the GPS signal up there. And so that we'll go over here to the side and we'll click on a monitoring button.
Right. And then one thing USGS has done after the 2018 eruption is started to redeploy equipment onto Mauna Loa. It wasn't needed after the 2018 eruption as much in certain locations. So a lot of it, they bolstered the monitoring of Mauna Loa, which is really good going forward, especially when we're trying to figure out which one is the next to go, Kilauea Summit or Mauna Loa Summit.
Right. So here, this is the last year of earthquake rates on Mauna Loa, right? So you can kind of see that it's been in a real sawtooth pattern, up and down and up and down. And they're kind of, can't really see much in the other graphs on here. But you can kind of see that recently we're at about 100 earthquakes a week is our most recent count. And the Mauna Loa update recently said that, I believe, I can click on it here and show you guys, that there were 74 small magnitude earthquakes on the summit less than 5 miles. Right, so that's kind of all I have to say about that's text-worthy Mauna Loa today, right? And so maybe it might be worth, I like to kind of go back to the last 5 years and put it in a greater context here. And so let's hear the last 5 years earthquakes first. So here we are on a back end of this kind of rise that followed the 2018 eruption. 2018 was a kind of gap, and then it kind of rose up, sawtooth pattern, and now it kind of seems to be coming down again. And so we are a little bit elevated, but it's still not as high as it's been, and it's not consistently high, and it's not consistently climbing. And then looking at the GPS, you can see the GPS is still kind of climbing at a similar rate, and there's been a little bit of noise here at the far right end of it, but you can kind of see that basically it hasn't really changed much what it's doing either. So still inflating, magma is still coming in, but nothing looks ready to fail at the moment. It's not really trembling or quaking or cracking that much apparently at the moment. And it might go through fits and spurts, right? Last month we were talking about how there was a little flurry on a northeast rift, and what would that mean? And so it kind of started and it ran and it lasted a day, and that was the end of that, and it'll keep adjusting like that. But until it keeps doing that, like every day, day in, weeks, same story as what we're talking about Lihi, right? It's got to stay elevated for a long period of time and not just be a flurry here or there, and then we'll have the signals we're looking forward to put more energy and attention and concern about what comes next.
Mhm. I had a question from Clarissa Pua on why is there so much quakes in Kau? Why is there so much movement in Kau?
Okay, let's get back over here.
Yep. Probably
Yeah.
talking about the Pahala quakes.
Yeah, Pahala.
Yeah, so it's there's kind of two big picture things, right? One is that's where we think the center of the hotspot is, so that the Pahala earthquakes. So that's those very deep earthquakes is where the magma is coming in. And actually, on an earthquake map now, when you have earthquakes on all three volcanoes, you can kind of see more or less the geometry that people imagine. Like if this is the center of the plume somewhere in here, then it's branching going to top of Mauna Loa, then it's branching going to the top of Kilauea, and it's branching going to top of Lihi, right? So this is kind of a central point to all three volcanoes, and that's kind of why it's thought to be that suspect location for that reason, right? And those are
Right.
deep. So that's kind of one aspect of that. And the other aspect is the south flank of the volcano, right? The whole south part of it is what's free to move. Of the whole island of Hawaii, the north end is the coldest and oldest, and so it's the one that's actually sinking back into this undersea, right? So the island's like a seesaw. The southeast end is rising while the north end is sinking. It does this kind of tilting thing like this, right? So as it does that, the south end over here, it gets too high and it wants to spread and fall apart. And the end that it's free to do that's not back to the north; it's to the south where it's open. So it goes back to the to the ocean that way. That's why it's the south, basically. That's why Kilauea ends up having a south flank, is because Mauna Loa's to its north. Mauna Loa's got Hualalai to its north, and so on. It's kind of like a whole series of dominoes, right? So
Wow.
Kau is a very, very, I don't know, energetic place, let's say, right? It's got energy
Right.
it's like a nexus of all these different motions that can happen on different axes.
And it's also inconsistent too. Like there's periods of times where you barely get any earthquakes in the Pahala, but then you get the last year or so that we've watched Pahala, and it's been above average rates consistently.
Right.
But it's a really interesting area that not a lot is actually known about the how that whole thing works. A lot of things have been put back on the table about
Right.
the Pahala quakes, and it's good that they have. There's a lot of intricacies going on with this, as you can see with just the Mauna Loa, right? With the signal of earthquake, the seismic signal that was rising steadily over the past several months, over the past 3 months, has fallen off.
Right.
So it's started trending a different direction. So it's not clear cut what these volcanoes do.
Right. Right. Shall we look at
Okay,
Kilauea?
another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's another question.
Yeah.
Say Lihi erupts. Will it be an explosive eruption? Because it is in the ocean. Would it be an explosive eruption?
Um, Most of the time when these eruptions happen that far underwater, you don't really see anything at the surface. Like you wouldn't see any bubbles or anything like that, right? It's possible you might see some pumice kind of thing floating up, right? But that's usually from the more silicic volcanoes, the ones that have more silica, because our kind of pumice, if it actually were to be like the reticulite variety, it's got so much pore space it doesn't actually float, right? And
Right.
I have a follow up for that.
and that dynamic may not that you really have the same kind of lava fountain underwater, right? It doesn't really spray up and fall down the same manner as you do on land, right? So it's a different dynamic that way. But yeah, so you might find some rocks, but you probably wouldn't see any bubbles or anything like that even. Yeah, Dane.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I lost it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I lost it. Was
And
trying to think of something there.
no problem. And the erupt, if it ever did erupt, it's over a mile deep of ocean. So the bottom of the ocean floor at Lihi, you're looking at just the tip of Lihi is pretty much over a mile deep in that area. So for it to be really explosive, there's a lot of water it has to go through. So yeah, I don't think it'll be too
Yeah.
explosive.
So the question I wanted to ask Phil was about the algae bloom that we saw at the ocean entry in 2018. Say it did erupt Loihi. could we go out there and see some kind of algae bloom, or is it too deep for even that?
Well, it's a
I
good
don't
point.
know.
Yeah, I don't know because yeah, I mean, I think the story was that it was essentially inducing cold water from deep down to rise up, right? Because the Kapoho
Right.
flow was reaching such depth, it was bringing all that really nutrient deep water up, right? So in theory, if, you add source of heat under Lihi, you could start convection and bring some colder, deeper water from that mile down, bring it to the surface, and you could have a alga bloom. Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
yeah. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I, I
If it goes,
suppose.
we need to send one of the choppers out or something to see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, because I'm not sure how it would be dispersed before it got to the surface of the ocean before you could see it.
Right.
Right.
You might get this long drift going towards Australia that's just slightly discolored at the surface or something. Who
Right.
knows?
It might be hard to
Right.
tell. Yeah. Yeah. But there
Might be
would.
really hard to tell.
Right. But underwater, there should be a plume that you should be able to tell. Like in three, if you were down there in a submarine, you should be able to detect it somehow. Yeah. Interesting question. Yeah. In 1996 eruption, they actually found like I think a kind of glassy sand and other kind of those kind of rocks. Right. So like instead of having like those, you do still have fountains and lava coming out and shattering underwater and then kind of depositing, but it's just a different dynamic. We don't really know what it looks like. There was no video of that. Right.
Right. Will be interesting if it does go again. I would like to get the Nautilus EV team back out here immediately if it does. The guys that did with the deep sea submarines that were mapping the bathymetry from the
Right.
coastline in 2018. Those guys would be amazing if that thing does go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
so
there's Lihi. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, and right, so
Kilauea.
right here at the top's that little summit caldera. Yeah, unless yeah, switch to Kilauea.
Right.
So here's the latest pictures of Kilauea. USGS doing a checkup of Pu'o'o, seeing how all their stations are on the other wrong side of very big cracks that are getting bigger every visit. And
Right.
like there is one of the webcams they're gonna have to pull back here pretty soon unless they want to lose it, unless they feel it's too dangerous to go pull it back. And then you can kind of see looking back 2 years comparison from Hale Mau, May 3rd of 2018 with the lava lake, and then May 3rd of 2020 with the acid lake, slightly acid lake. Yeah, so those are the
Yep, our new crater lake. That thing has been just according to USGS. Last I heard, it was at 115 feet now deep. And
right,
just getting deeper by the day, slowly but surely.
right. So yeah, let's
Right.
go up here to the monitoring Kilauea, and if we go to the past, oh nope, that took us to the earthquake map. Let's go to the past year. And then we go down to the bottom of this. And let's skip the earthquakes for now, and skip the GPS, and skip the SO2. And here's our summer water depth table. All right, showing in meters with the rise of water over the last 2 years into the summit.
Yep.
Yeah, slow and steady. Yeah, and at this
And we
rate,
also-
we haven't calculated in a while, but we still have many more months to go at this rate, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like still not even halfway. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like if my memory serves me, we should be about halfway now, right?
We might be getting close. We'll have to figure that out and get back
I
to you
think
guys.
it was like 70 meters we were thinking at first, but yeah, we'll have to get
Yeah.
back.
Yes, yeah. So we'll step back now. Here's the gas data for the past year. You see it's kind of scattered in the range of the highest plot on this graph is 80 tons a day of SO2. So not that much, and the highest measurement might have been somewhere upwards of 60 this year. 60, 40, 40, 35 might have been the measurements this year. So it's still fairly low, and the water is still doing its thing, absorbing SO2 up there. And GPS, you guys can see here across the caldera at the top, got kind of flat and looks like it's trying to go down a little bit. We'll have to wait longer to see what's really happening with this trend because it's got little ups and little downs, and it's got to go more than that to really be meaningful. But it definitely doesn't seem to be rising like it was at the back end of this
Yeah.
plot last year, right? It's definitely not steadily rising. Something different's happening over here. So
Yeah, the last update we did that we talked about that being a potential trend change of some kind, and it looks like it has, changed that tangent to more flat now.
Right. And even the East Rift Zone, the Pu'o'o Cone signal right here below it, you can see there was a little adjustment October of last year. But then since then, it's been, actually was going a little bit quicker up until the end of 2020. And then since, we actually heard reports from USGS that February 2020, they stopped seeing the INSAR growing as much as well. right? So then
Right.
it's still inflating, but the rate is slower. It's like slow down. It's
Oh.
downshifted.
Right.
Right. So somewhere around February, we can kind of see that here too. It's not really flat. It's still rising, but very slightly. Look at the scale on the left over here. We're looking at 2 centimeters and 1 centimeter change right there. So that's the Kilauea story. Is also pretty quiet. Here's its earthquakes over the last year. It's kind of been slow and steady, and kind of hard to see what's really happening there. Let's go back to the 5-year to look at the earthquakes. And you guys can see there is our 2018 eruption event, but more importantly to us is like the level beforehand is a kind of a low bottom down here, and it's slightly higher afterwards. So we're still in a post-eruption elevated state, and that's kind of still ongoing. South flank is, maybe still a little bit slower, but, we're still waiting to see that kind of tail off here in an earthquake plot.
Do you have the GPS up, the 2-year, the tracker one?
We can get that here.
Yeah,
So
I'm
let's
just
go
going through it, and we
Hawaii.
might want to talk about Jonica for a minute.
Yeah, something happened there. It was in a report as well. So let's go to the monitoring. Okay,
You
and
guys
so
just tuning in? We're doing a volcano talk with Philip and Dane. Very interesting.
thanks guys for joining us. We're gonna check out a Jonica Station right here. Yeah, so here's a Jonica Station
Right.
for the last 2 years. Yeah, and actually this was mentioned that on the USGS report. They said that there was another event that happened on Jonica recently, and it was opposite to the regular trend. So you can kind of see that it's actually going on the east plot. It's going west instead of east, like it was before, right? The north plot, it's going north faster than it was before,
Right.
and it actually is going up. Was going up a little bit faster than before, right? So it's hard to say exactly what that means, but there was that little event at Pu'o'o as well, and the way that I've been seeing this, it's hard to believe that there's enough data points in the middle of all those different faults to see every piece of land that's moving, right? So to me,
Right.
it's almost like a loose tooth. It's a loose tooth, and it gets pushed this way one way, and it gets pushed that way the next day, and this way and the next month, with magma from below this way. As the south flank is widening and opening, it's having to adjust. And magma is rising in there. It is filling, and that's kind of pushing and balancing everything out, and kind of helping to lubricate and hold it all. Kind of keep things dynamic, right? So, but it's hard to say that it's actually magma moving towards anywhere that's going to do anything beyond just like water in a waterbed moving from one side and sloshing from here to there, right, as the surface adjusts, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah, really interesting area out there, those Robins. That there's so many different spots of land that seem to act almost independently. See
Yeah.
that off the Highway 130 when we were out there doing investigating on the ground.
Temperature surveys, yeah.
Yeah, temperature surveys.
Yeah, so
So yeah,
that's what there is in Kilauea, apart from that one station, right? And I can go here to the current alerts in Kilauea, and I can tell you guys what they actually wrote. They wrote, April is variable but typical. In fact, there were 25% less earthquakes during the past month in April, it says on Kilauea, right? And that might be similar to what we pointed out as far as the south flank slowing down a little bit, right? Not stopped,
Right.
but slowed down a little bit. And
Slowing down.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's a one gear downshift, 25%. SO2 still low, and the lake, as Dane mentioned, 35 meters, 115 feet. Only 4 DIs instead of 10 last month, and then farther down it says GPS station Jonica and tilt station JK experienced an episode of deformation through April with a different direction from the normal trend. Here we go. Monitoring data do not suggest imminent change in volcanic hazard for this area. The south flank of Kilauea continued to creep seaward at elevated rates following a 6th earthquake, and continue to monitor all data streams for important changes. Right. So right now,
and just going through the GPS now across the south flank, and it does look like you could suggest that there is some kind of slowing going on in the movement.
Yeah. We like to look at the Kalapana Trail Station, right? So let's find that one and look
Yeah.
at that.
It's not so clear on Kalapana Trail, but it does look like it continued.
Kalapana Trail is near Manaulu, right?
Yes. Yeah. South of there, southeast of there. Yeah.
South. Yeah.
Yeah, like more south of Makapui. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not quite as
Yeah, if you
clear.
look-
Go ahead, Dane.
Dropping.
Just like look at the Helena Poly. That's like one that kind of has it's not clear still. I mean, it's so questionable if it is slowing or if it's still at the maintaining its trend.
Right,
I could
right,
see it make it either way,
right.
but
Yeah,
it's safe to say that it's still moving along the south flank.
yeah. It's not really soon enough to say that it's really that different, right? Especially with those
Right,
little scales. But um,
right.
here,
What's your definition of slowing
here, look,
slowing down?
Yohamo. Look at this one. This one's a little bit different,
Hmm.
right? What I mean is that the steepness. So the line, like um, how steep it is how fast the thing is changing, right? So my hand goes this way, right? So if the line is rising like that high, like that, then it's changing very fast, right? And if it's going higher up but at a lower angle like this, then it's slowed down, right?
Right.
So the angle, like on a graph here, just to the left, like it starts like this, and it kind of goes more flat. It kind of slows down on this north component on this Karanui Ohamo station right over here, right? But that's when within the rift zone. It's hard to say that's the south flank station. Really, we're looking at, for example, in here, looking at the difference between, right, these middle three blocks and the rightmost block being slightly a lesser slope, and it's really subtle and
Right.
hard to tell. Yeah, since February, right in there.
Okay, I had a question come in. How old is Lihi?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not very sure. Lihi is the youngest volcano we have in our
Right.
right.
archipelago, and
And when they did go and take samples down there, I don't believe they were able to date them really. That accurately, and those are just the surface flows, right? A lot of
right,
the all the old flows are buried,
right,
so hard to know.
right. I'm just trying to see if there's any estimates that I've seen here. I don't really see anything
No, I'm not seeing
really
anything.
listed. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, in some ways, like if it's still erupting, it's basically growing as we speak, right? So I don't know. It's definitely not as big as Kilauea and Mauna Loa, so it can't claim to be older than them. So that's why it's the youngest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found something that says at least 400,000 years, so we'll go with Google search.
Yeah. Well, that's a number with. Well, was there a source, Dane?
uh, you don't want to know.
Okay, so there's a number without a source, right?
Yeah, it's. I'm trying to figure out where the source is.
Yeah, I mean,
It's on.
yeah, for Kilauea, we talk about like it might be it still varies, right? But it might be not quite 500,000 years old and emerging from the sea, emerging from the water a few 100,000 years ago. So yeah, it could be that as Kilauea is emerging from the water, Loihi's popping up through the seafloor. That seems plausible to me. Something like that, right? A
Yeah,
few hundred
there's some
thousand
other
years
stuff.
younger than Kilauea.
Oh, here we go. Sonnet, what do you have for me? Uh, the sonnet, the Hawaii.edu suggesting 80 to 100 million years potentially. The later, it's hard to know. I
Yeah.
don't like the estimates.
No.
It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
old.
That's
It's
yeah.
old. It's the newest of the volcanoes,
But still
um,
old.
but
Yeah.
still old.
Yeah.
It's
That.
not gonna pop up above the water in your lifetime. I guarantee it. Like stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the estimates I've heard are between 10,000 and 100,000 years of activity might get it to the surface, right? So depending on the rate, we just haven't seen it. Because it's underwater, we can't tell if it's erupting unless there are earthquakes happening. It means we can't tell if it's erupting unless there are seismometers installed on land, and we haven't had that many seismometers on land to really tell for that long. We can't go and like Kilauea, look at the caldera wall and look at the exposed
Right.
flows and very easily tell. I mean, you can, but it's expensive to get the submarine down there, and there's only so much you can do in a dark by flashlight of a submarine, right? With limited time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah,
Right
so
on.
we'll go back to our last map here, and I think I still can't get the USGS one, the HVO one to load. So that's the deal with the earthquakes of being the most active part of our island today.
Right. And there was a huge buzz in our community about these earthquakes on Loihi and Kau. And we was eager to give everyone the explanations of what we think is happening. So again, if you want to summarize, Phil, on what's happening with the earthquakes on Loihi.
Yeah, so there's been a good number of earthquakes. Probably in a range of 40 earthquakes greater than magnitude 2 just today, which is May 11th, 2020. And this is not uncharacteristic of other earthquake swarms in the past. It doesn't seem to be yet of a scale to indicate an eruption, but that could be coming if we were to see more of this activity for many more days and over a week kind of thing, and to see them getting shallower as well.
Right.
What we see now probably is magma moving inside the volcano and the ground adjusting, right? So when I show you guys the depth, most of the earthquakes that we see from that deeper part of the range are probably the magma itself. And then let me see if I can get that up here again for you guys. Pull it over here. There it is. So most of the earthquakes that are in this deeper cluster right here are probably the magma, and then the things that are above it are probably the ground above it, buckling and adjusting to the magma pushing from below, right? So as we see this kind of cloud or earthquakes, if we see it get shallower and shallower, continue moving to the right, as time moves on, this graph's going to scroll left, and we see the line going to the right, then we'll see, okay, that might actually be an eruption. But even if it does erupt, it doesn't really concern much people on land. You might feel earthquakes, and until earthquakes get big enough, which there's no indication they would, based on historical evidence that we have, then there is really no hazard to anyone on land, And if there was hazard, it would probably be in a form of tsunami from big earthquakes, which would feel on land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting times, though. It's interesting, to wake up and be like, oh, by the way, there might be the new volcano might be doing things today.
Right.
Yeah. So there it is, and yeah, there is the map view right there.
There you go, guys. 2.7 7 minutes ago. So
still rocking.
Still rocking. Yep. Still rocking. So we'll be monitoring these earthquakes throughout the days, throughout this week, and we'll be monitoring if it's getting shallower. And then it's a huge buzz right now in that community of and especially 2 years to the date from now, in May, we're having some activity with our volcano again. But thank goodness it's not near our island or anyone, and it doesn't pose a threat to Hawaii Island right now. So
yeah, this is a perfect awesome. Kind of natural event to be a spectator for, right? It's maybe that's what we're mostly interested in, is something else to pay attention to and to look at and think about for a change, right?
Right.
Awesome, yep, especially when with the low risk too. So thank you guys for setting this all up and having this conversation.
Yeah, it was a much needed after today. A bunch of earthquakes. My phone is going off about earthquakes, so much needed.
All right.
Any last remarks, Phil?
So you sign us off how you like.
All right, guys. Hey, mahalo everyone for tuning in to Volcano Update. Don't worry, anybody. We're gonna be fine. It's so far away from our shores as of Loihi, but we'll be still monitoring these earthquakes every day and the depth of the earthquake. I want to say mahalo to Dane, DuPont from Hawaii Tracker, and also our main man Philip Ong, leading the charge on the volcano activity. And we like to leave you with one saying: stay classy. Una. Aloha.
All right.
Man, it's rocking.
Yeah.
I gave some pings all this whole time.
Yeah.
Ping. Oh.
Yeah.
Eruption. Ping. Oh, eruption. Ping.
We only had a few crazy people in there.
Earthquake. Sorry.
Yep.
I was like, what the hell?
There's one question in there I almost wanted to say something about, but I'll probably just leave a comment. She's like, I'm seeing predictions that it's gonna wipe out Kona Queens. I'm like, yo, no, that's the wrong volcano if you want to do that. If it was Hualalai doing this right now, we would be having a very different conversation. If it was
Right.
Hualalai having this earthquake swarm, that would be bad news.
Oh, we
Yeah.
missed Sinkhole and Volcano. I could have mentioned, but oh well, that's no biggie.
Ah. There's plenty we could have mentioned still, but did good. That went well.
There's a comment about U.S. just energy transfer theory. What are you talking about?
It's the stupid
Okay.
Ring of Fire, goddamn
Oh,
Dutch
okay.
sense thing.
Energy. Oh, I see. Fiji
Where,
Thermal.
like,
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, he's using like earthquake forecasting BS to see
Right,
Who's
that
that?
he can. Dutch sense is a YouTuber.
Oh,
He pisses me off to no end.
He
Like,
gets
it's
10
conspiracy.
subscribers, but he's really good at it.
Yeah, he has great presentation and a sick looking model, and he has like a ton of subscribers and views. But man, does he suck! Like,
His information's terrible. I mean, like he gets just enough right to be dangerous. That's the thing.
yeah, and then gets everything else wrong. So I don't know if you want to try and do the Corona one tonight. It's up to you guys.
Yeah,
Leave it
Ken.
to
Yeah.
Ikaika, his call. If he's up for it, we can. If not, no worries. Do
we
it later.
can. Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
I gotta go pee and get a
Let's
snack
take a
bar or
break.
something. Some
Yeah,
nuts.
I'll take a break real fast one. I gotta eat.
take a break, stuff like that. Meet back in 10-15.
Okay.
Shoots.
All right.